I am a virus. Chapter 3, The Virus in Chinese Culture. 2. The absurdity of using Western knowledge for Chinese purposes. In the same era when Japan proposed the complete Westernization under the concept of escaping Asia, entering Europe, China embraced the notion of Chinese learning as the foundation, Western learning for practical use. If we compare the current levels of civilization in the two countries, the difference is glaring. If the COVID-19 pandemic had not escalated into a humanitarian disaster, exposing China's poor governance, many Chinese might still believe there's nothing wrong with the concept of Chinese learning as the foundation, Western learning for practical use. They would remain lost in the illusion of leapfrogging the West. The term leapfrogging has become popular in China in recent years, where many citizens take pride in China's relatively advanced technological applications and anticipate that China will soon surpass Western nations in various technological fields. One of the most laughable instances of this mindset is the term New Four Great Inventions coined in 2017, referring to high-speed rail, QR code payments, shared bicycles, and online shopping. Anyone with even a modest knowledge of history knows that none of these so-called new inventions were original to China. The world's first true high-speed rail was developed by Japan in 1964. The first mobile device-based payments took place in Finland in 1997, and QR codes originally created in 1994 were invented by a Japanese company. The world's first shared bicycle system, known as the White Bicycle Plan, was initiated by the city government of Amsterdam in 1965, involving the purchase of 50 bicycles painted white and scattered around the city for public use. Online shopping as a concept was introduced by British inventor Michael Aldrich in 1979. The reason these innovations appear prominent in China is simply because of the large population, vast territory, and a strong, centralized government. The term New Four Great Inventions might be embarrassing, but it underscores how complacent we've become in accepting Western knowledge for Chinese purposes, without ever considering the absurdity of this approach. The absurdity of Western knowledge for Chinese purposes lies in the final word, use. If we look back more than a century ago, when China was less aware of the world, people might have resorted to the concept of using Western techniques to control Western powers as a temporary measure for self-preservation. This was understandable given the circumstances. But after more than 100 years, how can we still settle for just using the knowledge of others as the nation with 1/5 of the world's population, if China cannot create inventions or solutions proportionate to its population to contribute to the world? How can we expect to command the respect of the global community? In fact, many Chinese people don't know that the term Four Great Inventions they've always been proud of is actually a misunderstanding. During the War of Resistance against Japan, Chiang Kai-shek invited British historian Joseph Needham to compile a list of China's achievements to boost national morale. Objectively speaking, China's ancient civilization was not ahead of the world at the time, but rather ahead of its neighbors. There was no need to fabricate stories to glorify ourselves. At the time, the term Four Great Inventions, proposed by Needham, might have helped lift the nation's spirits, but the fact remains that we've used these inventions to deceive ourselves. The real truth is that after Needham identified these four inventions, he also proposed the Needham question, which ponders why China's science and technology stagnated after the 13th century. Why did Chinese science remain at the empirical level, producing only primitive or medieval theories? Why, after the Ming dynasty, did China fail to produce any groundbreaking innovations recognized by the world? This is a question that any rational society should ponder and reflect on, rather than clinging to outdated achievements that no longer hold weight in modern civilization. Comparing the paths of China and Japan since the mid-19th century, one can clearly see Japan's far greater willingness to learn without the burden of believing in past superiority. Meanwhile, China remains trapped in the mentality of Chinese learning as the foundation, Western learning for practical use, constantly searching for a so-called path with Chinese characteristics, unwilling to confront the fundamental reasons for its backwardness. We still think the problem is simply a matter of learning technology, when in reality, it's a matter of confronting deeper institutional and cultural issues. I partly agree with Needham's interpretation of the Needham question that China's economic and technological decline after the 13th century was largely due to the growing centralization of power, where Confucian thought, distorted by the centralized system, began to shape and restrict people's thinking and behavior. Look at China today. The centralization of power, combined with Western technologies, has only entrenched a system that controls the thoughts of its citizens far more than any previous regime. Under such conditions, true innovation and invention are virtually impossible. Chinese scholar Zhang Weiying once said, "Freedom is an indivisible whole. When the mind is not free, action cannot be free. When speech is not free, thought cannot be free. Only through freedom can creativity emerge." From my observations of many Chinese people, they neither understand nor accept this logic, because many of us don't need freedom. Too many signs show that we're not concerned with how the world sees us. Instead, we care about having face, power, and status within our familiar circle. Deep down, we have always rejected true civilization. For many Chinese, freedom is something that cannot be eaten as long as there's money, status, and face. We are willing to accept the lack of freedom. In summary, the absurdity of using Western knowledge for Chinese purposes is that China's approach to adopting Western science and technology is solely to preserve the existing system, which neither values freedom nor equality. Both the government and the people see no need to break free from the cultural and institutional constraints. We are still intoxicated by the past, as if our historical contributions to civilization should automatically earn us the world's respect. For the past 5 centuries, China, with the world's largest population, has contributed nearly nothing in terms of innovation or invention. Over the last 30 years, China has enjoyed the so-called advantages of latecomers, using its population to apply technology, leading to economic success. But we've failed to recognize that cultural and institutional limitations are now revealing their effects, and the disadvantages of being a latecomer are becoming more and more apparent. In the last 2 years, due to the US-China trade war and other reasons, many key technologies have been blocked and constrained by the US. The Chinese government has finally awakened, urgently pushing for independent research and development, with even powerful private companies like Alibaba investing heavily in chip production. I wonder, do these people really think that power and money are all powerful, or have they become so self-deceptive that they no longer realize they are lying to themselves? Have the Chinese people resigned themselves to just continuing to use what others have created, and when we can't make it ourselves, we'll buy it, steal it, or cheat to get it? Many Chinese are indeed proud that China is transitioning from the world's factory to the world's market, but do we really believe we can use this large market as leverage, bait, or reason to deceive others? If that's the case, I must say that this mindset is toxic. It shows disrespect for others and for ourselves. Sometimes, I really wonder if the Chinese understand what respect is, and whether we understand how to earn respect.